Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about winter books. So I thought I would select a few books from my shelves that give me this feeling of the cold weather, the snow. So I have 6 books here and I think you will enjoy them. The first one on the list is Small Things Like These by Keegan. If you read the first page, it says, "In October, there were yellow trees. Then the clocks went back the hour, and the long November winds came in and blew and stripped the trees bare." This is a story about a small town in Ireland in 1985. There's definitely a very Christmassy feel about this book. Descriptions of the snow, all the little rituals that have to do with the days leading up to Christmas, like when they light up the lights in the town and they put a large Christmas tree on the main square. People are drinking hot chocolate in the comfort of their homes. And then they get really cold when they step outside. So the story is about how this man who's a coal merchant finds out that there's something shady going on at the local church. It's a very short book, so it's basically about his inner struggle to decide what to do about it. So he wrestles with this ethical question with the backdrop of the preparations for Christmas and the snow. What I like about this book is the language is just so simple, yet very evocative. As you're reading it, it's like you can really feel kind of the cold and the little snowflakes on your eyelashes. It's just a delight to read. And I would say this is very characteristic of Claire Keegan's writing, the fact that she can say a lot with just a few words. So I highly recommend this one, Small Things Like These. The next one on our list is also very much a Christmas book. It's called A Christmas Memory by Truman Capote. And by the way, if you're interested, if you don't want to read it yourself, you want to have somebody read it to you, then you can check out my video where I literally open up this book and read it from beginning to end. So you can just press play and listen to me reading it to you if that's what you would prefer. So basically, Truman Capote grew up in rural Alabama. He apparently lived with some relatives, and there was one particular woman who was his caregiver in his early years. And so this book is kind of like traveling back in time to those early years and describing all the feelings he had back then, the beautiful friendship between him and his caregiver. She was a woman in her 60s and he was just a little boy. They developed some seasonal rituals that had to do with the Christmas season, and basically, they were trying to make it as festive as possible with very little money. So it follows all their adventures as they try to make little gifts for each other. And it's very appropriate for the Christmas season. It has that spirit about it where you feel like it restores your faith in humanity because you see that some people truly care. And so if you want something that's heartwarming and that captures the Christmas spirit perfectly, then I would recommend this one, A Christmas Memory by Truman Capote. The next one on the list is actually a classic of Russian literature from the 19th century, but it is not Dostoevsky, which I feel like is probably the most popular author we always hear about. This is actually Alexander Pushkin. This cloth-bound edition is titled The Queen of Spades, but it has a bunch of stories in them, and The Queen of Spades is one of them. Two stories that I most like in this are The Station Master and The Queen of Spades. So let me just give you a quick summary. So The Station Master is about, basically, if you can picture that back then, you had to have horses to get from one place to the next. And so they had these stations that were like a little bit like an inn, I guess you could say, because it was a place where you could stop for the night, and then they would have stables there. So the horses would rest and get fed. And sometimes you could change horses and get horses that had been resting for a while. So these places had to have somebody running the place. And sometimes they were kind of in between two larger cities, and the person running the place was the station master. So these are people who are not usually the hero of the story in Russian literature, because they were just a means to an end. But in this short story, it talks about how he found out the backstory for the station master's life and what happened to him. And so at first, it's just the narrator talking about his interaction with the station master. And then he goes back in time to when the events unfolded that had an impact on the station master's life. So that is the first story. And I would say that story is quite nostalgic, but somehow I really liked it, perhaps because I had to study it for school many years ago. And then the second one I really liked was The Queen of Spades. And this is the story of this older woman who is said to possess some fancy trick where she knows how to win at card games. And so this young man finds out about her, and he becomes obsessed with obtaining the secret from her, and he'll stop at nothing. So I really like this story because it's a short story, but it's a little bit of a page turner. And let me just read you a paragraph so you can see why I'm picking this as part of my list of winter books. By 10 o'clock in the evening, he was already standing outside the Countess's house. It was a frightful night. The wind howled, wet snow fell in big flakes. The street lamps burned dimly. The streets were deserted. From time to time, a sledge drawn by a sorry-looking hack passed by, the driver on the watch for a belated fare. Herman stood there without his greatcoat, feeling neither the wind nor the snow. So yes, I love the descriptions. I love the story. So I highly recommend this one, The Queen of Spades by Pushkin. Now, the next one on our list is actually not a coincidence, because when I started reading this book, which is Ethan Frome by Edith Wharton, it gave me a similar feeling to Pushkin. And the reason for that is she has sort of an interesting way of introducing the entire story. It starts with actually herself traveling to a small town in Massachusetts and talking to the locals and finding out that one of the people who lived there had an accident many years ago that had a huge impact on his life and his health. So then we travel back in time to before the accident, and then she tells the story of how everything unfolded, and we follow this character, Ethan Frome. And yes, there are several scenes that have to do with the snow, which is interesting because there's the snow in the present when she begins the story, and then there's also snow in the past. So that's an interesting parallel. And so the story of Ethan Frome is basically a typical Edith Wharton type of story where you have this man who's married to a wife who is fairly controlling. And then the wife somehow ends up inviting her female cousin to come and stay with them. And then it kind of creates a strange triangle. It's not a simple storyline. I think the reason why I like this book is because it's all about the subtleties and the details of domestic life and the difference between how a young couple appears to the outside world versus what's really going on behind closed doors. And I think Edith Wharton is really skilled at this detailed storytelling, almost like a psychological thriller vibe. So I highly recommend this one, Ethan Frome. So for the last two on the list, I have two Nobel Prize winners for you guys. So the first one is the Polish writer Olga ToKarczuk and her very famous book, Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. So what's interesting about this book is, it is for sure a very, very snowy atmosphere because there are months and months of cold weather and snow, and it impacts everything in terms of the way of life of the people in this Polish village. Now, the story on the surface is a murder mystery where people are starting to die, and so there's an investigation going on. But I think the true core of the story here is more about human interactions. There's these lovely human connections here between the main character, who's an older woman who teaches part-time and is trying to make ends meet. And so it's the story of her friendship with her neighbor, with a young man who's trying to translate poetry, and with a lady who works at the local store, and all these little friendships and how they provide moral support for each other and kind of survive the harsh climate and the loneliness of living in a remote village. Some people might enjoy the mystery aspect, but I think I enjoyed more so the friendship aspects that are described in this book. The main character is very quirky, and she has all these strong opinions about how things should be in the world. And it's actually very entertaining to read about. I would say if you want to read a book that has a snowy feel, interesting to read, but you don't want something that will destroy you emotionally, like a lot of books tend to do, then this would probably be a good one to pick up. And then for our last book, we have the Norwegian author Jon Fosse and his book A Shining. So this is a really short book about a man who gets lost in a forest, and him getting lost there, and it's a little bit of a stream of consciousness type of writing where we kind of follow his thoughts as he's in this forest and he starts to hallucinate different things happening in the forest. And it's almost like the idea that the psyche kind of projects what's inside of you and then you see it outside of you, that type of feel. And I think it's brilliantly done. It's very much like a short fever dream. And if you're just in a snowy mood, like you just want to be surrounded by tall trees and snow and just kind of go into a daydream state, then this is the book for you. This author is also a Nobel Prize winner. So he has a very unique style where the sentences don't have a lot of punctuation. And so it helps to create this flow where you're just going from one thought to the next and starting to lose your grasp of reality. For some reason, when I read it, I was in the mood for something with snow. And this worked very well for me. So I hope you enjoyed this one, A Shining. So this concludes our winter reads video. I hope you enjoyed it, and please leave your recommendations in the comments for your favorite snowy, wintry reads, and I'll check it out, okay? Till next time, happy reading!